When police entered apartment 213 in Milwaukee, the smell hit first. Thick, heavy, sweet with rot. It was the kind of smell that clings to your clothes, to your hair, to your memory. Inside that small, cluttered apartment, the quiet man next door had been keeping trophies, human trophies. The officers hesitated at the door. A single lamp flickered against stained wallpaper. On the counter sat a Polaroid camera, a few unopened beers, and photographs scattered like fallen leaves. One picture stopped him cold. It showed a man's body, arched and lifeless, posed as if frozen in a ritual. That was the moment the mask of Jeffrey Dahmer slipped away. To neighbors he was polite, a little strange maybe, but harmless. He carried his groceries up the stairs, nodded hello, played loud music, sometimes to hide the sounds no one wanted to imagine. But behind the thin apartment walls, a quiet storm had been growing for years. Before the horror of apartment 213, there was a boy who spent afternoons collecting animal bones behind his house in Ohio. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, born May 21st, 1960. He was shy, withdrawn, fascinated by the insides of things, how they worked, how they came apart. His parents argued constantly. The home was full of noise, but empty of warmth. While other kids played baseball, Jeff roamed the woods with bag and knife, dissecting roadkill like a young scientist with no mentor. By high school, the loneliness had settled in. He drank early, laughed at the wrong times, and drifted through class unnoticed. Teachers described him as quiet, intelligent, detached. Inside, a hunger was forming, not for food, not for attention, but for control, for possession. He wanted people who could never leave. The first time he acted on that impulse was in the summer of 1978. He had just graduated when he picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks. A friendly conversation, a few beers, the pretense of companionship. But when Stephen stood to go, Dahmer panicked at the thought of being alone again. He struck him from behind with a dumbbell. The silence afterward was deafening. He touched the body not with hatred, but with a terrible curiosity. Cutting, cleaning, learning. Later he would say he wanted to see what he looked like inside. That night marked the beginning of the end. For almost a decade after, Dahmer drifted. College failed, the army discharged him, jobs came and went. He was ordinary on the surface, a man in thrift store clothes, working nights, drinking too much. But inside, he replayed that first murder like a lullaby. The desire never left. It only deepened. In 1987, he was living at the Ambassador Hotel when he met Stephen Twomey. They drank, talked, returned to Dahmer's room. He claimed he woke to find Stephen dead beside him. Instead of calling police, he bought a suitcase, stuffed the body inside, and took it home to dismember. It was methodical, almost gentle. He photographed each stage, as if documenting an experiment. This became his pattern. Drugs, photos, silence. Each victim an echo of the last, each one ending in the same frozen stillness. When he finally moved into Oxford Apartments, Unit 213, the killings accelerated. The building was filled with noise, music, arguments, laughter, but none of it could drown out the screams that never reached the hallway. Neighbors complained of strange smells. Dahmer blamed spoiled meat. Maintenance workers shrugged and sprayed air freshener. The horror was hidden behind a locked door and a practiced smile. Inside, he arranged his trophies carefully. Skulls on shelves, hearts in freezer, hands and genitals preserved in jars of formaldehyde. He believed he was creating something lasting, a private museum of obedience and beauty. He wanted companions who would never leave him, bodies that stayed exactly where he placed them. At night, he sat on the couch, beer in hand, watching zombie movies on VHS. He told police later that he wished he could make his own zombies, men stripped of will but still breathing. It wasn't just lust or power. It was loneliness that had curdled into horror. The people who died in that apartment were sons, brothers, friends. They came for a drink, for company, for trust. They left behind silence. By the time 1991 arrived, Dahmer's life was collapsing under the weight of his secrets. He'd been arrested for drugging a teenager, but somehow remained free. He was reckless now, confident the darkness would never find daylight. But all monsters make mistakes. On the night of July 22nd, 1991, he met Tracy Edwards at a bar. The same invitation, the same promise of photos and payment. But this time, fear met opportunity. As Dahmer turned away, Edwards bolted to the apartment door, handcuffs clattering from his wrist. He ran into the street, flagged down police, and led them back to apartment 213. The door opened, the smell hit, and the world finally saw what... Inside apartment 213, the officer stood frozen. The television was still playing softly in the background, the glow flickering across photographs on the wall. Each picture was worse than the last. Dozens of Polaroids showing men in lifeless poses, their faces calm, their eyes empty. One officer opened the refrigerator door. There, among packages of meat and a box of baking soda, was a human head. The other officer backed away slowly, whispering, "We have a body in here." But there wasn't just one. As the apartment was searched, the horror multiplied. 3 more heads were found in the freezer, a heart wrapped in plastic, hands in jars of formaldehyde. In the bedroom closet, a blue 57-gallon drum filled with acid. Inside it, 3 torsos dissolving slowly. On the dresser, skulls were arranged in neat rows like trophies from the Museum of Nightmares. Dahmer watched quietly as police moved through his home. He didn't resist. He didn't shout. He simply said, "For what I did, I should be dead." When detectives asked why, his answers were calm and chilling. He spoke of loneliness, of wanting people who would never leave. He described in detail how he killed, how he preserved, how he tried to make living zombies by drilling holes in skulls and injecting acid. There was no anger in his tone, just emptiness, as if he were describing a science project. The investigation took months. Each photograph had to be identified, each victim given a name. 17 young men, mostly from marginalized communities, gone without a trace. For years, their families had searched, unaware that their sons were hidden inside one apartment. The media called him a monster, but prosecutors saw something worse. A man who knew right from wrong, who planned each murder with care, who chose victims who wouldn't be missed. And yet, in his own way, Dahmer seemed to crave capture. He told police, "I couldn't stop. I didn't want to hurt anyone anymore, but I couldn't stop." His confession filled hundreds of pages. He remembered every name, every date, every gruesome detail. The detectives who interviewed him left the room to cry, some refusing to return. Even the most seasoned officers said they had never seen evil so calm. When his trial began in January 1992, the courtroom was packed. Reporters from around the world came to see the man who had eaten parts of his victims. He sat quietly, dressed in a yellow shirt, glasses perched on his nose. He looked more like an accountant than a killer. The prosecution laid out the evidence, the photos, the bones, the confessions. The defense argued insanity, claiming Dahmer was driven by compulsion, not choice. But the jury saw through it. He was found saying guilty on 15 count of murder and sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, nearly 1,000 years behind bars. Even in prison, Dahmer remained an enigma. He spent his days reading the Bible, cleaning tables, and talking quietly with chaplains. He told interviewers he had found God, that he was sorry, that he knew he deserved death. Some believed him. Others saw it as another mask, the calm, polite man hiding behind remorse. But prison has its own kind of justice. On the morning of November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was cleaning the prison bathroom with 2 other inmates. Moments later, guards found him lying on the floor, beaten with a metal bar. He was pronounced dead an hour later. No tears were shed for the man who had stolen so many lives. When news of his death broke, families of the victims gathered outside the courthouse. Some said it wasn't enough. Others said it was finally over. But the truth was, the wounds would never heal. The mothers who lost their sons still woke in the night, hearing echoes of their laughter, haunted by what they'd learned. Reporters tried to make sense of it, how a man so ordinary could carry out such horror. There were documentaries, interviews, endless analyses. But no one could answer the question that lingered. What creates a monster? Is it madness, loneliness, or something darker? The quiet erosion of empathy until nothing human remains? Even today, decades later, the story of Jeffrey Dahmer continues to echo. His name has become a symbol of evil that hides behind normalcy, of trust betrayed, of silence that kills. Apartment 213 is gone now. The building was demolished, the ground paved over. But the memory of what happened there still hangs in the air of Milwaukee, like a whisper that never fades. And maybe that's what makes this story so terrifying. He wasn't a shadow in the alley or a face on a wanted poster. He was a neighbor who smiled, who offered you a drink, who seemed lonely but harmless. He was a reminder that monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they live right next door. Thank you for watching Whispers of Crime. If you believe evil wears a familiar face, subscribe and listen close.